The year was 1990X. And it actually was 1990X. And it actually was in my house. I had this game growing up as a teenager, and I was playing through it. I feel most people probably know what Earthbound is, but if not, it's an RPG on the Super Nintendo where you run around as 4 kids on a quest to save the world from an evil force named Gygus. I'm gonna sound old on the internet for a second here, but I really want to go back in time and paint a picture of what this was like back then. This era of gaming was most importantly pre-internet, at least for me, as I didn't have internet until much later. So all we had was playground rumors, friends, and paper strategy guides. So before I get this off the screen, look at the bottom and what it says on the guide. The complete guide to Earthbound, straight from the pros of Nintendo. This was the real shit, man. Not just a guide, but the guide from the pros at Nintendo. Nintendo professionals. You know, life was pretty sweet with the guide. I used it like most kids probably did, and it taught me a lot about the game and it got me out of some jams. Eventually, I got to a section called Stonehenge, and the guide had a little blurb called Starman Super has the Sword of Kings. It introduced me to a concept, 1 out of 128 drops. If you were lucky, really lucky, monsters could drop rare and powerful items. I grinded for the Sword of Kings, and I got it. I continued on the journey until I got to Magicant. Magicant. Magic Ant. Majambu! The professionals at Nintendo informed me in a blurb of 128 item coming up in the Sea of Eden, the legendary Gutsy Bat. The Gutsy Bat is insane as a weapon as it adds 127 to your gut stat. And the Sea of Eden is unique in Earthbound because it's one of the few locations that enemies don't respawn. Within the sea, there are 3 Krakens, and once they're dead, they're permanently dead. I grinded and I grinded and I grinded trying to find the Gutsy Bat. Turns out, the professionals at Nintendo were wrong all along. Kraken didn't actually drop the Gutsy Bat at all. So how did this even happen? What even happened? There's clearly a picture in the guide that shows Ness holding the Gutsy Bat in his inventory in the Sea of Eden. Well, that part I don't exactly know, but I managed to track down a developer and asked him for clarification. Here's what he told me.
LOL,
Okay, so that last part never really happened. But anyway, the Gutsy Bat was an enigma, because without the internet, word of mouth prevailed. Some kids on the playground said that they got it, some kids were honest and said that they never found it. But this was the perfect fodder of legend for a rare 1 out of 128 weapon. Only 3 Kraken spawn in the Sea of Eden. You only got 3 chances unless you're a set. Eventually, the internet caught up and people started questioning the strategy guide. It turns out that the professionals working on the Earthbound strategy guide made a pretty big error. Kraken in the Sea of Eden, in fact, has no loot at all. It doesn't drop anything. They actually meant Bionic Kraken drops the Gutsy Bat, which it does, and it's still a 1 out of 128 chance. The problem with Bionic Kraken dropping the Gutsy Bat is it's in the point of no return. You quite literally fight them right before the end boss, and once you travel to the Cave of the Past, you can't return to do anything else. As a kid, honestly this made me feel pretty robbed that the strategy guide was wrong, and it also presented some pretty lame solutions as a result. I could travel to the Cave of the Past and find it there, but then my save file would be stuck forever in the end of the game. I could perhaps use a Game Genie to cheat it into my inventory, but that always felt kinda shitty also. I really wish there was a way that you could find this thing without Game Genie, without getting stuck in the Cave of the Past. And that's basically where my Earthbound story ends. My save file always missed out on having the Gutsy Bat as I didn't want to travel to the end of the game and be stuck. There's so much more to do and so much more in the rest of the game to see. Nostalgia gripped a hold of me a few years ago. I mean, I'm getting older, and I found myself wanting to experience some of the stuff in my childhood again. I decided to go through Earthbound. I made a new save file, and I pulled out the old trusty strategy guide I was going through on net. Did we get the Soundstone? We did. Did we beat up Frank? Wait a minute. I'm an adult now, and I've learned a lot of things in my years here on this world. With a million people who have followed this guide to a T, I learned sometimes that you need to go against the ebb and flow. Sometimes there won't be someone around to hold your hand to guide you. Sometimes the old beaten path isn't the best path to travel down, even if it is the most reliable road, and then it's okay to put yourself in what you want first. My entire life I just assumed getting the Gutsy Bat by grinding down to Krakens until it dropped for real, and leaving the Cave of the Past was impossible. It's sometimes easy to believe in this world without questioning or breaking free of the perceived boundaries set around you. I mean, we're told at a really young age that you can't have your cake and eat it as well. It goes against thousands of years of cake eating and cake having. So let's figure this out. Was bringing the Gutsy Bat back from the past really impossible? Turns out it's entirely possible without using a game genie. It just requires new ideas, a new plan, a new focus. Ness has to sleep in the hotel and on it, but despite looking like my destiny was to beat up Frank again, through a series of menu inputs you can actually walk through the on it barricade and skip Frank entirely. Skipping that barrier is more than just a metaphor to dump the strategy guide. It also reminded me you're never too old to learn how to do something new or different. So what do you do after you skip on that and once Ness gets into Tucson? You know what you do? You skip that also, and you skip that by eating skip sandwiches. It's also like the developers needed to get a hold of that damn bat. The player needed to skip a bunch of stuff, so they programmed it into the name itself. Ness has to eat skip sandwiches 3 times to clip into the cliffs to enter 3 without ever having rescued Paula. We skipped Paula! And after going from 0 to 100 by extreme skippage by consuming more skip sandwiches than anyone needs in a lifetime, you basically play 3 in Winters painfully slow for the next hour, because apparently Winters is completely unskippable. But you know what? In this new highly skippable frontier, it reminded me of the old saying, remember to take some time to smell the roses. There's a lot of comfort in familiar sights and sounds and smells and people. This file was actually a new file created to help set up a glitch to help my old file find the Gutsy Bat, so I had to raise Jeff up a few levels to help him prepare for when he took the Skyrunner back to 3. And can we take a second here to talk about how outrageous the hitbox in the Cave Boy is? I got red battles so many times attacking them from behind. Like, how is that even possible? Too bad I couldn't skip that red encounter with skip sandwiches. Jeff busted out of Winters in the Skyrunner en route to meet up with Ness and Paula, who magically appeared despite us never talking to her, or seeing her, or rescuing her, or even knowing of her existence. The next step was actually really painful and annoying, and why I needed to raise up Jeff quite a few levels. His health and lack of equipment make him destroyed by everything, but you need to get a zombie dog to bite you and poison you, and then save to set up the next glitch. If you skip through the entire game up until that point, the other 2 kids are pretty low level, so using Jeff to kill the Cave Boys is maybe the smartest way to set this up. At this point my body is so jacked up on skip sandwiches, I had to go to the bakery to buy croissants. I saved the game and I used the croissants to make sure Jeff didn't faint going back to the location he crashed the Skyrunner. Apparently, if you faint on the stairs while poisoned, the game just absolutely freaks out when you go back to the title and load a file. Thus ends the purpose of this new file. I loaded my old file, which was saved outside of Foreside for a very specific reason, and continued onward. I guess this is a good time to say shout out to my Twitch staff for being true homies and naming all the characters on the second file respectable and high class names. I really appreciate you guys. As mentioned, the game totally breaks once you load the game, and I saved in Foreside because the map in Earthbound is actually all interconnected. If you walk directly left from the payphone in the Foreside department store, you basically over time walk directly into the Cave of the Past, where you can fight bionic Krakens. Ideally, you want to do this before you beat Ness's Nightmare in Magickin, because the annoying Soundstone casually becomes an absolute god tier item that allows you to reset collision and loading zones by listening to it for a few seconds. I know this seems pretty convoluted, and the obvious question is, why? I mean, you got all the way to the Cave of the Past without doing the intended thing, travel by the phase disorder, and I guess my answer is kinda twofold there. I've always believed that if you put in hard work, you'll be rewarded, and I like the idea of grinding for the other 1 in 120 items, like the Sword of Kings or the Magic Fry Pan. It just felt right to do the same with the Gutsy Bat. But, as I also said, I think it's really easy in life, and in this game to just accept parameters that people have set for you. I mean, look, like sometimes you just gotta eat the damn cake while holding another piece of cake in your hand, alright? I just like the idea of getting this bat and not being trapped in one section where all I could do is kill Gygus whenever I loaded that save file again. I like the idea when someone tells you that something is impossible to go against the flow and figure out how to make the impossible possible. And I like the process of really thinking outside the box for an alternative solution. In the Cave of the Past, I did the thing where I grinded and I killed a bunch of bionic Krakens so it finally dropped this damn bat, and it did! I finally had the thing. But funny enough, because I didn't travel to the Cave of the Past by phase disorder, I can't use the same glitch to return to the future as it requires somewhere to save, and I have nowhere to save because the game doesn't recognize I ever traveled here to begin with. The solution to this was actually pretty funny. You just let the enemies kill you, since it sends you back to the last spot that you saved, which in my case was Foreside. I thought this was comically poetic in its own right. After you get knocked out in Earthbound, the game asks you verbatim, so how about giving it another shot? And after all of these years, I finally answered yes. I gave the Gutsy Bat and Ness another shot. In its own little way, it feels like a sense of equilibrium has been restored. I brought the bat back, and I put in the hard work to earn it. Thanks for watching.